Okay. Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and start. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Executive Committee agenda for Monday, September 12, 2022. We have 7 members present, 2 absent at this time. We do have a quorum. We'll go on to the approval of the minutes from August 8th, 2022. What say you? Motion by Member Metzger, second by Member Wendt. Comments or questions? Additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. And opposed? Motion is carried. We have no members of the public tonight, so we'll go on to the Executive Committee. We have appointments before you, and I will so move. Appointments and reappointments. I need a second. Second by Member Metzger. Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye. And opposed? The motion's carried. Next thing we have on our agenda is information technology. We have nothing to present tonight from Mr. Nelson, so we'll go on to item D, Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. If you'd like to come up and join us, Mr. McCall.
Hello. First item there, D1 is a request for an approval of a speaking agreement for keynote speakers at the McLean County Behavioral Health Forum in 2022.
And I will so move. Is there a second? Second by Member Johnston. Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye. And opposed? Motion's carried. You have the floor, sir.
The second item is a request for an approval of an agreement between the County Board and the McLean County Center for Human Services for triage center services as outlined in the McLean County Request for Proposal Agreement.
And I will move. Is there a second? Second by Member Johnston. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. And opposed? And the motion has passed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You have your Behavioral Health Coordinating Council report on pages 31 through 38. So we'll next move to presentations by candidates seeking appointment from the McLean County State's Attorney's Office. These presentations, the candidates will come in the order in which they did apply into our office. And so first of all, we'll have Ms. Erica Reynolds.
And we have staff retrieving her right now.
She'll get escorted in just a minute.
Escorted.
We have 10 minutes allowance, as I will tell her when she comes in, and I'll allow questions after that.
Here she is.
Welcome. Mr. Reynolds, you will have 10 minutes to address the Executive Committee, and then we'll entertain any questions after that. You have the floor.
I got it? Okay, thank you. I want to start by thanking the Executive Committee for taking the time to discuss the board's difficult decision in filling the McLean County State's Attorney vacancy and giving me the opportunity to speak to each of you. My name is Erica Reynolds, and I'm currently an Assistant State's Attorney in the McLean County State's Attorney's Office assigned to the Crimes Against Children Division. I grew up in a small town southwest of here and was raised on a farm by my mother. I am the middle of 3 girls. I learned early in my childhood the value of hard work, as everyone who lives on a farm has to chip in to keep it running. I went to college at the University of Illinois at Springfield, where I played college basketball, and I was team captain 3 of the 4 years I was there. I graduated with a degree in psychology and went to law school at Northern Illinois University. In 2012, I graduated, passed the bar, and started my first job as an assistant state's attorney in Woodford County within 2 weeks of getting sworn in. When I entered the office, I was one of 3 attorneys. However, during a majority of my time there, the office consisted only of me and the state's attorney. As a result, I was doing a little bit of everything you could do as a prosecutor. I handled everything from traffic to misdemeanors to juvenile abuse and neglect to juvenile delinquency to serious felony cases. My duties also included filling in occasionally for the state's attorney at the county board meetings and advising the county board members on legal issues that came before them. In 2015, I was asked to come to McLean County and placed in the drug unit. I spent the next several years prosecuting drug dealers that prey on the most vulnerable in our society. I also had the privilege of being a member of the McLean County Drug Court team. That experience taught me the importance of options outside of prison and seeking justice. Because defendants who often come before us have co-occurring disorders involving mental health and substance abuse, the position allowed me to work closely with the prosecutor assigned to recovery court to properly place those defendants in the specialty court to suit their specific needs. In that position, I had the honor to witness multiple drug court graduations. These people illustrated the value of hard work in conquering their addiction after being provided the tools to do so by the criminal justice system. Sadly, this experience also made me intimately familiar with the lack of resources for alternatives to the criminal justice system in dealing with these complex issues. In the spring or summer of 2018, I was moved into a general felony position where I tried a few jury trials and was in charge of charging decisions on whether a crime should be upgraded to a felony based on a person's prior record. In 2018, I was selected from 5 applicants to become the Crimes Against Children prosecutor, which is a position that I had interest in since becoming a prosecutor. I spent the last 4 years prosecuting both sexual predators and violent offenders against our youth. I secured a 450-year sentence against a sexual predator that was later a life sentence in a subsequent trial regarding a separate victim for the same perpetrator. I secured a 300-year sentence against a violent sexual predator who violently molested a 5-year-old over multiple years, and multiple life sentences against those who have murdered innocent people in our community, including children. Because the primary job for the state's attorney's office is to do what we can to seek justice and keep the community safe, we have implemented practices to aid in that endeavor. For example, shortly after taking over as state's attorney, Don Knapp adopted a process of handling new gun cases in the office. Every charged gun case is tracked by the state's attorney. The assistant state's attorneys know that if they desire to plead a case down or dismiss that charge, they need prior approval before doing so. Typically, assistant state's attorneys are given wide latitude to handle each case as they see fit. But the state's attorney believed that with the gun violence in our community, additional input on these particular cases is necessary. There have been times where an assistant state's attorney wants to plead down a drug charge, so the leadership team is consulted to evaluate whether it's appropriate under the circumstances. When our office was tasked with trying multiple first-degree murder cases during the height of COVID restrictions, resources were shifted, and the trial attorneys were granted at least a month of prep time to ensure that they were ready. The shifting of those resources by the leadership team to accommodate the back-to-back-to-back trials was unprecedented and proved successful, as justice was served in each one of those cases. It is also stressed to our assistant state's attorney that the relationship we have with law enforcement is of paramount importance in keeping the community safe. We believe that by working hand in hand with our law enforcement partners, our community is much safer. While our office isn't the end-all be-all, we certainly have played a significant role in shielding our community from the violence that plagues others in our area. In addition to prosecuting crimes against children and homicide cases, I have served on the leadership team within the McLean County State's Attorney's Office that I had previously alluded to. On that team, I have been a part of hiring and firing decisions. I have sat in on new hire interviews and helped make decisions about staffing and resources within our office. I am in charge of making sure that there is courtroom coverage and have been a resource for people in our office to air grievances. During the 4 years I've been in that position, there has been a revolving door of attorneys and support staff in the office. Every time we thought that there was going to be some reprieve, someone else would put in their notice. That seems to be the culture right now, not only in the public sector, but the private sector as well. One of the things that has been made clear by those who have vacated our office is that they enjoy the atmosphere that we have created from the top down. While people may be jockeying for promotions, you don't see coworkers trying to badmouth their colleagues to gain an advantage. I have heard countless times coworkers say that they would stay if more money was an option. I have been contacted by some who have left our office that have expressed an interest in coming back if some of the higher paying positions become available. In fact, I've been told by someone who left the county, if I do take over, thereby creating a general felony position, that person wants to come back and would be willing to take almost a $10,000 pay cut to do so and work within our office. I think that speaks volumes of not only the positive atmosphere created in the office by the leadership team, but also the respect that I have gained from my colleagues. I understand in the past, trial experience wasn't necessary as the position is seen as primarily an administrative or management position. With the changes in the law set to take effect in January of 2023, the state's attorney has a huge undertaking. The system will be completely overhauled overnight, and it's critical that Don Knapp's replacement is well equipped to handle these changes. There is going to have to be a dramatic shift in resources and additional personnel. In the course of my position on the leadership team, I have sat in on meetings with the State's Attorneys Association as the bill was being drafted in real time. I have been part of meetings with the judiciary on what the new changes will look like procedurally. I have attended town halls organized by the AOIC to get an understanding on how others are interpreting the statute. I have communicated directly with other states' attorneys in our circuit on how the changes will impact the way our county interacts with them. I have been part of discussions internally on how we plan to meet the new demands and where resources can be shifted in anticipation of these changes. It will take a combination of significant institutional knowledge, strong leadership skills, and trust from those within the state's attorney's office to lead the team through these unprecedented times. I believe that my skill set has earned me the reputation that makes me a qualified replacement. Now I would welcome the opportunity to answer any questions that the executive committee has.
Thank you. Any questions? Member Solner?
First off, thanks for coming. With your departure from the office, if you become our new state's attorney, what kind of a hardship will that put on your office, and is there somebody ready to step in to take your place?
So because of the way that our office is set up, we have essentially provided support for every position in office. There is a person that's ready and willing to step up into whatever position is vacated, which is something that we have become acutely aware of as people have vacated their random positions over the last 4 years. In my particular position, there's one individual who was responsible for my caseload while I was on maternity leave. I've been on a maternity leave 2 separate times in the last 4 years, and she has handled those cases successfully, and she is ready, willing, and able to step into that position.
Okay, other questions? Member Martin?
If you're not selected, are you going to run at the next election?
I can't say for certain that I would absolutely run in the next election. I enjoy my job. It would depend on who takes over and what that looks like. In the last 4 years, it has become very apparent that we don't really know what's going to happen in the next month or the next year or the next 3 years. In fact, when I took over the general felony position that I was in, I had no idea that the CAC position would eventually become vacant, and I had assumed that that was something that I was going to have to pursue years from now. I had no idea that that was going to be vacated. So it's been very apparent over the vacancies that have come about over the last 4 years that things changed drastically over time. So I couldn't answer that at this time.
Okay, thank you. Member Johnson?
It's kind of a similar question. If you are chosen, do you plan to run in 2024?
Yes, I do. I think that it's critical for our office to have some type of stability. We have been through a lot over the last decade with shortages in staffing, with changes in the administration and changes in the state's attorney. And so I do think that it's critical for the office to have some type of stability at this point.
So just one more question, like as far as, because you've been under two state's attorneys, correct?
Yeah.
So kind of having seen it operate, is there anything that you think that you'd like to see taken into another direction, or that you'd like to bring from your skill set into the state's attorney?
I certainly like the leadership team approach that's been created. I think it's important to have input from a lot of different people in the office. And I am somebody that has been a resource for other individuals in the office to air grievances. I think people are comfortable coming to me and explaining that they're not necessarily satisfied where they're at or they're experiencing burnout or the like. I hope to maintain that open door policy with them.
Okay, anyone else? Member Schaefer?
So you have to take 2 weeks off of work because you have to take 2 weeks off of work because you've got vacation days built up. What do you do?
I don't know what a 2-week vacation looks like. That's not something that I've ever done in the past. However, in my position as the leadership, on the leadership team, and then also in my position as the Crimes Against Children prosecutor, I am always available by text or phone call. It is not unusual for me to have officers contact me at random times. And if there is a significant case like a murder were to happen, and it's happened in the past where I haven't been on call, I haven't been the person that's responsible to answer that initial phone call, but eventually I get called in and I drop what I'm doing and address the needs of the community. And I step in as a resource for law enforcement whenever necessary. So even when I do have vacation days, it is not unusual for me to be answering phone calls or emails or the like.
Member Erickson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your presentation, I believe you had referenced that you had worked in Woodford County with their county board. And the state's attorney's office does have a civil division. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you did during that role? And Mr. Chairman, if I should have a follow-up question, I would like to ask it. Thank you.
So in the state's attorney's office in Woodford County, they do not have a civil division because of the size of their office. And at the time that the state's attorney took over there in 2000, I think it was 2010 or 2011, it was something that was stressed to him that they did not want that farmed out, that they wanted him to be accessible to the county board members. And as a result, he has been their primary go-to. They will farm out bigger trials and things like that, but he goes to all the county board meetings. And in the event that he wasn't able to go, had a family event or something that he had to attend, he would ask that I go and attend. There were occasionally different issues that I would research. One of them was had to do with wind farms. It's been so long, though, I couldn't give you the specific issues related to that, but I remember doing a lot of research on wind farm deconstruction and those contracts. And so I was available as a resource for them. If he was not available, I was required to fill in.
How much interaction would you say that you had with county board members in Woodford County?
At the time, it's a small community, and so I had a lot of personal interactions with them. It wasn't unusual to see them in the courthouse, and so I interacted with them regularly, some more than others. I wasn't over there a significant time. I mean, it was the state's attorney's primary responsibility, and so that he took over that. But if there were times where he wasn't available, I was there for him.
There are 20 different McLean County board members with 20 different opinions sometimes. How do you think you would deal with us advising us on civil matters?
Well, because I don't have a significant amount of civil experience, I certainly would be relying on the first assistant and the civil division as it stands now. I've communicated with the civil division. My understanding is that they have no intention of vacating the office if I was chosen to be state's attorney. So I would rely on them to a significant amount. And, you know, as time goes on, I'm hoping that I would pick up on the information and would be another resource that you would be available to you guys if for whatever reason you couldn't get a hold of the civil division. But the way that I view that relationship is an attorney-client relationship, and we are available to provide you with legal references to advise you on the law when you have questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you,
Thank
Erica,
you.
for coming. Usually we would open up to other county board members. The only one I see here besides who's on the committee is our new member, Member Lawler. Welcome. We'll go on to our next candidate is Mr. Aaron Hornsby. He's being ushered in. I'm not going to say escort.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mr. Hornsby.
Thank you.
You have 10 minutes to speak to this executive committee, and then we'll ask you a few questions.
Thank you very
You have the
much.
floor.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. My name is Aaron Hornsby. I'm 53 years old, and I have been serving McLean County as a prosecutor for more than half my life. I was hired as the traffic prosecutor in 1994, and my wife and I moved to Bloomington in December of 1994 with a 5-year plan. And now, 27 years later, our 4 sons, who were all born at Broman Hospital, are college students, and I have served with 5 different McLean County State's attorneys, and our home has been in Bloomington. It's about 3 miles east of here from the Law and Justice Center. After I was, when I was hired, I swore an oath to uphold the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And for me, the rule of law, that has remained my utmost consideration at all times. And as a prosecutor, it's my duty every day to seek out the truth and to, at all times, seek justice. Now, during my 1.5 years, when I first was hired, I served as the traffic prosecutor, the misdemeanor prosecutor, and the DUI prosecutor, and handled various hearings and trials. I served as a trial prosecutor in felony court and conducted dozens of jury trials. I became the McLean County juvenile delinquency prosecutor, and during that time, in 2006, the judge agreed with my motion, and I prosecuted a teenager that had committed rape at the age of 14, and he remains in prison today. In 2012, I again petitioned the court to motion the court to allow the prosecution of a 14-year-old who brought a firearm to school and discharged a firearm within one of our local schools in a schoolroom filled with children. That motion was denied, but he was adjudged a delinquent minor and sentenced to juvenile prison. The pandemic, during the pandemic, I was I guess what's called an essential worker. I reported to work every day. And during that time, while the rest of the world was on much of a shutdown, I was busy. I was the screening attorney that charged the dozens of persons with having committed the looting and destruction in our communities of Bloomington and Normal in May and June of 2020. As the screening attorney since 2016, as I've stated, I filed thousands of criminal charges. And in court, the words that I write are the words that the prosecuting attorneys say in open court on the court record at the custody hearings as probable cause and at plea hearings as the factual basis. I also make the bail recommendations. And in doing that, the nonviolent offenders, at my request, have been released without the requirement of a cash bail. However, the times when I have recommended significant cash bail is those individuals who should be detained and pose a threat to our community. I don't have any civil experience. I would rely on the wealth of knowledge of a very experienced civil attorney in our office, Chris Spanos. I would hire the best people for the positions for the team of the McLean County State's Attorney's Office. And I would do that with the thought of giving them the freedom to do their jobs and not interfere unless there was, or not interfere as long as that proceeds and advances our pursuit of justice and protecting the community. We currently have a very strong core of experienced prosecutors here in McLean County. And every member of the McLean County State's Attorney's Office, the support staff, the administrative assistants, the prosecutors, should know that they are a valued member of a team. Because as a team, we endeavor to make sure to work every day to serve the public and to protect. I thank you for this opportunity to address you and for your support. I hope to continue to serve McLean County in a different role as a prosecutor, as the McLean County State's Attorney. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hornsby. Any questions from the committee? Member Martin?
Thank you. If you're not selected, are you planning on running for the state's attorney at the next election?
No. I have that's a rather quick answer, I know, but I have been a prosecutor here in McLean County, and I have remained a prosecutor here in McLean County because I believe in the purpose that we have and the job that we do. And I would just say that I would want to continue to work in McLean County for that goal and not have some kind of separation, which I think would be necessary if I were to step away and decide to run against somebody for that role. And again, that's if I wasn't chosen, correct? Thank you.
Any other questions? Member Schaefer?
Thank you. So you have 2 weeks vacation you have to take. What do you do?
I'm glad my wife isn't here because I took a week vacation this year, and that was the first time in 5 years. So again, it's just the decisions that I've made in believing that the work that we do is so important. So I apologize. I would love to have 2 weeks of vacation. If you have suggestions for me, please let me know. But in reality, I'll be honest, I really haven't taken those vacations.
Member Erickson?
Does Don Knapp not give anybody any vacation over
He
there?
does. He does. Well, our office manager would probably let you know that I've gone past my my limit on vacation hours quite a bit. So it just doesn't happen. But no, I'm allowed vacation, to answer your question, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to follow up here, not on vacation, on a separate matter. Just working with the county board, I mean, that's, I think, an important role for the state's attorney. Do you think you can work with 20 county board members that have different opinions at times? Do you think you could work with us?
I work in an office where at times there are many different opinions. We, a lot of times when we discuss cases, there's not consensus about how to proceed or about evidentiary matters even. So the bottom line is I think it's important as the role for the state's attorney with the county, certainly, to give the opportunity to, if there's a question or an issue, for all the members to have the information that they need to make the best decisions for the county, because this is also where I live. But the bottom line is, yes, I believe I can work with many people, and I have over the years.
See no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Hornsby.
Thank you.
For joining us. Well, we have one more candidate. That's Mr. Eric Gibson. Welcome, Mr. Gibson.
Thank you.
Your mic is on. You do have the floor. You have 10 minutes to address the committee.
Okay, I'll do my best to be succinct. My name is Eric Gibson. I'm currently an assistant state's attorney in Woodford County. I am originally from Manhattan, Illinois, which is a small farm town outside of Joliet, essentially. I grew up on a small farm, went to Bradley, so I know I'm starting behind the 8 ball, because not only am I a Bradley grad, but I also am not from this county. So, but I went to Bradley. I studied journalism, or broadcasting technically there. After a year of working at a hospital and mental health clinic, mental health inpatient side, I decided at that point that I would go to law school. I went to John Marshall and was in school there. After I got to the point of getting to the point where I was on my electives, I took a job over with the city of Chicago in the law department as a law clerk. I worked that job up until March of 2018. I then went to Knox County, which unbeknownst to me was being run a little differently. I was thrown right into the fire. Most jobs, you start either in traffic or something like that. In the state's attorney's office, you work your way up, you gain trust. In that county, it was a situation where I went in, I immediately handled half of the felonies. I also did the juvenile delinquency, juvenile abuse and neglect. I, during parts, was in charge of zoning. I worked with the health department. I advised the county board. Knox County obviously being a medium range, I would say, county. The state's attorney's office is smaller, so you end up with a lot more hands-on. I think ultimately that was good for me personally, being able to get to touch a lot of different things. I actually didn't do much traffic there, which again, that's kind of an odd thing. I was there until December of 2012, and for those that don't know or who haven't looked up my background, I actually ran for state's attorney in Knox County in 2012 as an independent. I ran as an independent in part because the filing deadline had passed when I finally got fed up enough with my boss that I decided that I couldn't work for him anymore, and then we needed somebody in the office that was going to be more accountable. The state's attorney, while I was there, was facing federal lawsuits for sexual harassment and wrongful termination. And additionally, at that point, I was essentially handling most of the personnel, and I was the one that was litigating most of the most serious crimes because he worked he felt he was more of an administrator in a 5-person seat or attorney office in which he was one of the attorneys. So I ran against him. It was a tough thing to go through because I had the support of the county board chairman as well as the treasurer. When I first took on the endeavor, they actually encouraged me to do it because they got to the point where they were fed up with not having accountability in the office. So I did it, which I lost. I won the county, but lost the city of Galesburg, and that was the breaking point there, which ended up with me getting terminated. After I was terminated there, I applied for a number of jobs. In fact, I actually interviewed with Jason Chambers here, and he wanted me to start in traffic. It was tough for me to go all the way back down and take a huge pay cut to start at the bottom here, especially with where I was in life at that point. So I ended up working, joining a civil practice firm in Peoria and Morton, Illinois, called Beckendorf and Beckendorf. I did civil litigation for that firm. That was a different thing for me because I ended up doing a lot of family law and like I said, civil litigation. I hadn't done a lot of civil litigation at that point in my career. I had done municipal law with the city of Chicago, so I was familiar with municipal courts, administrative courts, which is where I started at in Chicago. But I ended up doing a lot more civil litigation there. So that was good. I feel like that rounded me out a little bit more as an attorney. I worked there for about 4 years, and just shy of 4 years. And or just shy of 5 years, actually, 2013 to 2018. And then I got the bug not only to prosecute again, but I was also got to the point, I don't know if any of you have unfortunately been through any custody court or divorces or whatnot, but it can be a little wearing on everyone involved, including the attorney. So I got to the point where I didn't like how things were going, and so I decided to join Woodford County. I wanted at that point to get into a situation where I would have a little bit more autonomy, like back when I was in Knox County I did, where I could do a little bit more of everything. Knox County has, or Woodford County has afforded me that. I've worked for Mr. Minger there since 2018 now, so just over about 4.5 years now. And it's been great. I've handled just about everything that comes into the office. We added a third attorney during the COVID shutdown, or just after, technically, the COVID shutdown, so that was nice. But it's allowed me to, again, handle a lot of different things. I'm the primary point person with animal control and zoning, and at times I've helped answer questions for the county board. But it's one of those situations I think that has really fit me well. I really enjoy it there. And if it weren't for this opening, I probably wouldn't have looked around. I just knew that this position came open. I decided I wanted to apply for it. It's been one of my goals at some point to obviously become a state's attorney. I ran for state's attorney in Knox County in 2000. I think it was 13 or 14, I applied for the Ford County State's Attorney's position. That was one that ended up going to the now current Livingston County State's Attorney. So, so it is a goal of mine. I feel that with my background of not only criminal law, civil law, I think with my personal background in several different areas, I think it's important in a position like this to be involved in the community. That was something that I would definitely do. I was involved when I was in Knox County. I was in Lions Club. I was in Crime Stoppers. Since I've been in Peoria, I was a big brother. Actually, just this year, my little brother aged out as he graduated from high school, so that was good. And I've tried to stay involved in the community as much as possible. I think that's an important thing with any position that's an elected position, especially because I think it's important for you to be accessible for the community. I also think realistically leading by example is an important thing too, and being out in the community. And this is a position where you can do a lot. I know that the prior state's attorneys in this community have tried different programs in order to work on decreasing the amount of criminal activity, either through domestic violence programs, drug addiction programs. I also think it's important maybe even to do some outreach to minors, because obviously we're getting to a point now where the minors are just becoming more and more likely to recidivate as they become older. So I think that's important. I feel that I have strong leadership skills, and I've spent a lot of time coaching Little League sports, so I know the difficulties that can come with leading, especially if you've ever had to coach a bunch of fifth grade basketball players. You can know it's at times like herding cats. And so it's important to be able to reach different people, and that's one of the primary difficulties at times in leadership positions, is attempting to find ways to communicate with everybody on your staff or in your organization in order to effectively communicate the message you're trying to get out there. So I don't have anything further about my background. I know I'm running short on time, so if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee? We'll go with Member Schaefer first this time.
Yeah, this is kind of not work-related, well, kind of work-related. So you have 2 weeks of vacation, and you have to take 2 weeks of vacation. What do you do?
I have to take 2 weeks of vacation? Well, I'm a big believer on being present, even if I'm not present. When I was in Knox County, I had a jury calendar every other month, so it was always important to me to be reachable by my office. And I spent a number of vacations working on some jury trials and whatnot. I think if you're saying I have to take the vacation time, I would take the vacation time, but I would also be available in case things came up, because this is a position that is not a 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 position, 8 to 5 position. It's a 24-hour position.
Member Martin?
Thank you, Chairman. If you are not selected, are you planning on running for the election next, or during the next election?
You know, it would be tough for me to tell you definitively one way or the other. If I were not selected, we're talking about an election that's 2 years away. I would say I would be interested in it, obviously. But that being said, who knows where I am in 2 years? Everything remains status quo. I think it would depend on how I don't believe necessarily that there always needs to be change just for change. So if whoever's in the position is doing a great job at that position, at that time, I don't know that I would run, to be honest with you.
Member Johnston.
Thank you. Given that you're the only external candidate, and given how valuable this role is in the safety of our community, could you try to summarize the best way possible, what you see as the challenges that we're facing, so that we know, we have some understanding that you're ready to walk into the role if you're chosen?
Yeah, so we're facing in this state, as everybody knows, lots been made of the Safety Act going forward, and that's a real crucial component of anybody that is going to get this position. It's going to be a battle to some extent. And I've always prided myself when I've prosecuted on consistency. I don't do favors for people who may want them or on the board. This position's about justice, so there has to be some component of looking at people's backgrounds and that kind of thing. Just to touch on that specifically, obviously substance abuse continues to be a big issue in all communities. I think that there has to be a delineation made, and one of the things that I've been a big proponent on in my time as a prosecutor has been that I think you delineate between the addicts and those that the dealers, essentially. So if you are on the side, if you're one of those people that's pushing on the streets and you're creating the problem, I think there has to be stronger and definitely more important consequences than those people that are just addicts. Now, I think there's limits to the people that are just addicts. In fact, I just had a case over in Woodford County in which we had an individual before us that got caught with a sizable amount of substance containing methamphetamine, that he conveyed himself to be an addict. However, here in McLean County, back in 2015, he was using drugs with his then girlfriend who ended up dying, and he got convicted here of delivery. He had 2 other delivery charges. So I argued for a much harsher sentence. I asked for 15 years on this guy. He was facing 6 to 30. He hadn't been to prison before. I think there needs to be a strong line on that. The other thing that I think is the other 2 things that I think are very important to not go soft on is guns and violence. You know, a bar fight's one thing, but if we're talking mob violence or somebody just blatantly attacking a victim that we've seen more and more on the internet on various videos of random victims being attacked in the street for no apparent reason, or people committing acts of violence without anybody provoking, without provocation, I think that's a big difference too. The gun crimes are a big thing for me. Since I've been a prosecutor, again, that is one of the things that I've tried to get a little heavier on the sentences when we have gun crimes, especially felons in possession of a gun, things like that. The Safety Act, I think, the way it's currently written, assuming that that's the act that goes in January 1 is expected, I think we're going to see our law enforcement really tested with fleeing and looting and different things like that, and a lot of recidivism in short amounts of time. If anyone has been keeping track of what's going on in Cook County right now, they have been essentially imposing something similar to this, in which they are allowing people out on bond, on felony bond, and there's actually a Twitter account that's keeping track of how many of those people then within days of being released on felony bond have then gone and shot somebody. And I think the last time I looked, the numbers were in the 30s. So I think those are the things that are the biggest hurdles, is trying to limit. Addiction's a tough thing. I, by no means, don't understand. I've seen enough people go through it that I think it's something that you have to work with, but there are also the component of trying to reduce the amount of people actually pushing the drugs. I think that is a big thing, guns and the violence.
Okay, any further questions? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. We'll be seeing you a little bit later.
Yep, I appreciate everyone's time today.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to item B on our agenda, the Finance Committee report, Chairman Metzger.
Well, I feel inadequate.
I'm sorry.
I'm feeling inadequate after all of those
Oh.
wonderful people coming in here, and all I'm going to ask is, I guess that's 4B1A, and that's request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2022 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance for the county treasurer, found on page 55 and 56. I so move. This is actually to replace old workstations that are no longer useful and are not, do not provide the ergonomics and lighting that is actually needed in today's workspace. So I so move.
Motion by Chairman Metzger, second by Member Martin. Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye. And opposed. The motion's passed.
And we have a couple of items that will be on the board coming forward, and those actually are salary adjustments and salary structure type items. So that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go on to item C, Health Committee. Chairman Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Health Committee has 2 items for action today. 4C1A is request to approve an ordinance by McLean County Board amending Chapter 205 fees, Article 11 miscellaneous code fees, in the McLean County Code for Chapter 216 food service, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Schaefer. Is there a second? Second by Member Soldner. Comments or questions? Discussion.
Member Schaefer, is it 3%? Is that what we were seeing increase?
That is correct, and these are fees that had not been increased for several years because we froze them. The Board of Health chose not to increase the fees because of COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. And opposed? The motion's passed.
4C1B is request to approve an ordinance by the McLean County Board amending Chapter 205 fees, Article 11 miscellaneous code fees, the McLean County Code for Chapter 310 sewage disposal systems, water wells, and geothermal exchange systems, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Schaefer, second by Member Johnston. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. And opposed? The motion is carried.
Thank you, and the Health Committee has numerous items for the board on Thursday.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go on to item D, Justice Committee report. Chairman Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I suppose I should have asked if I could have combined some of those, but any chance I can combine C, D, and E, the grants?
Check them out real quick.
I don't know.
Emergency management.
I should have asked beforehand, I
Victims
know, but I didn't think
assistance.
to do it this time. Yeah,
Staff is recommending combining D and E,
D and E.
Illinois Criminal Justice. Okay.
D and E?
Yeah.
Okay. All
Any
right,
objections?
all right. First item for action is item 4D1A, request approval of an MOU for youth diversion between Bloomington Police Department, Normal Police Department, McLean County Sheriff's Department, and McLean County Juvenile Court Services, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Erickson, second by Member Martin. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion is passed.
Next item on the agenda is item 4D1B, request approval of an emergency appropriation ordinance amending the McLean County fiscal year 2022 combined annual appropriation and budget ordinance for the Emergency Operations Center, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Erickson, second by Member Schaefer. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? The motion's passed.
Next item on the agenda is item 4D1C, request approval of a grant agreement between the State of Illinois, Illinois Emergency Management Agency, and the County of McLean, parens nuclear number 23REP-MCLEN, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Erickson, second by Member Johnston. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion's carried.
The next two items have been combined, item 4D1D and 41DE. 4D1D, request approval of a violent crime victims assistance program grant agreement between the Attorney General of the State of Illinois and McLean County State's Attorney's Office, grant number 23-1070. And item 4D1E, request approval of a grant agreement between the State of Illinois, Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, and County of McLean, ICJIA Grant 221446, and the link was provided with our packet, and I so move.
Motion by Chairman Erickson, second by Member Solner. Comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye. And opposed? And the motion's passed.
Mr. Chairman, the Justice Committee has no other items to be presented for action, and we'll have additional items to be presented to the board on Thursday.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll go on to the report of the Property Committee, Vice Chair Johnston.
Thank you. Property Committee has no items for action, and we'll be bringing one item to the full board on Thursday.
Thank you. We'll go on to the report of the Land Use and Transportation Committee, Chairman Solner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Land Use and Transportation also has no items for action. We will have a couple to present to the board. I would be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll go on to the report of the County Administrator, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman McIntyre. I have 4 items to present this evening. The first being G1A, request approval of a resolution of the McLean County Board continuing the declaration of a disaster.
Motion by Member Martin, second by Member Johnston. Comments or questions? No discussion? All in favor, please say aye. And opposed?
Yes, opposed.
Okay. One opposed vote. Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is G1B, request approval of a contribution of American Rescue Plan funds to Carl Health Center for Philanthropy for partial funding of a mobile health unit.
And motion by Chairman Schaefer, second by Member Martin. Comments or questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. And opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to comment that this directly supports the #1 priority identified by the Community Health Improvement Plan, which is access to care. Thank you for your vote. Next up is G1C, request approval of proposals submitted by Ragland Buildings and Wayne Litweiler Excavating, Inc. for boat rental shop at Kamlara Park.
There's a motion by Member Johnston. Is there a second by Member Metzger? Comments? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. And opposed? And motion's carried.
Thank you. Lastly, I have G1D, request approval of contract with American Asbestos Abatement LLC, doing business as Midwest Service Group for lead abatement at the Old Courthouse County Museum, and that's on pages 140 and 141.
A motion by Member Martin. Is there a second? Second by Member Johnston. Any comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. And opposed? And the motion's carried.
Thank you for your time. I have no other items to present this evening.
Okay, we'll go on ahead. Anybody else have any other business or communication for tonight? Member Erickson.
Mr. Chairman, I should have probably asked when we were doing the state's attorney's information, but this is my third go-around on doing that. The first one was with when State's Attorney Yoder moved to be a judge, and then I guess Ron Dozier filled in there for a little bit, and then Jason Chambers came in, then Jason Chambers left, and then Don Knapp came in. Looking forward, or not looking forward, to the vote on Thursday, if it is a tie vote, what would happen?
All right, we discussed this briefly, but I'm going to have to refer to our civil ASA.
Well, it's inadvisable. Yeah, the advice is don't tie. It is inadvisable to have a tie vote when you leave on Thursday. So if you do initially have a tie and you can't break the tie, I would recommend a brief recess, after which you come back and then break the tie. Because it's not like you can name an interim state's attorney, and you certainly don't want the state's attorney's office to go vacant for any extended period of time. While it's possible, we can certainly figure out how to manage it. It's definitely not advisable. So I think the chairman would have the discretion to keep the board here as long as it took to have a vote that, until the white smoke came out of the chimney.
Is there any statutory recommendation after that if a county board just cannot come to any kind of a conclusion?
None to my knowledge, but I'd be glad to research that or make something up between now and Thursday.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Other question, Member Schaefer?
It's not a question. I just want to thank all three of the candidates because they're still here. They all brought very good backgrounds to present to us, and it was very interesting to hear all of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other business? Business tonight? I have bills to pay. They've been reviewed and recommended for payment by our auditor to the tone of $638,347.50. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Member Martin. Is there a second? Second by Member Schaefer. All in favor, please say aye. And opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you all for coming. I'll be conducting individual interviews beginning in about 10 minutes for the next 2 or 3, 4 days, and I'll be calling some of you for recommendations. Please feel free to give me any input, and I make that announcement to any board members too, the ones that are not here as well. And then we'll come up with a recommendation on Thursday's meeting. So thank you very much, and this meeting's adjourned.